Hey, what's going on everyone? If you haven't been able to tell by the title and thumbnail of this video, we bought a new car here at the Bimmer barn, an incredible deal at $800, and it's kind of a funny looking car considering that it's made to look like an M5, but really this car has some secrets and some stories to tell. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get straight into the video. So here it is. This is a 2008 550i. Its chassis code is the E60 if you're not familiar with BMWs. And this particular 550i has had the M5 conversion in the end with the quad tip exhaust, which makes it a really cool addition. It still has the 550i badging though. I don't think it's trying to portray itself as anything besides what it is. You still have the standard side mirrors, the standard fenders, and then in the front here what looks like an M5 bumper is actually the 550i M Sport bumper, and you can tell by this particular body line right here that the M5 bumpers don't have. Otherwise though, it does look really sharp up here in the front, especially since this is an LCI car, so it has the upgraded LED headlights and the tail lights as well. Unfortunately, these I think have been blacked out, and not by some vinyl film, but what looks to be probably like a spray film. So something like a spray paint is on there. I'm not sure if that means we can get it out. Maybe by wet sanding out the top layer and then buffing it like we would do headlights. But I don't want to risk it because I've never tried it on taillights before. I'll probably have to do some research about getting that stuff off. Now at $800, this car is an incredible deal, especially if it would run, and it does. So what I was told when I came across this car, actually the owner came to me and said, would you like to buy my old BMW? And I said, sure, let me take a look at it. Well, the car had been sitting for a couple of years, and you can definitely tell that by the immense paint damage on the trunk as well as on the roof of the car. The hood isn't too bad, but the roof really took a lot of sun damage, and you can see it's basically like a matte finish all the way cracked down to the base coat. So as far as saving this with wet sanding, I'm not sure if that's possible. But I don't know. It's really hard to tell. It's just really scorched. Now, it does look great from the outside of the car. Doesn't seem to be like there's any major dents at all, or even small dings. There's no hail damage, and for having sat outside for a long time here in Florida, that's really surprising because sometimes we do get hail, especially in the winter. But this car is relatively unscathed and has no body dents or dings. Now, if we go ahead and unlock the car, we can take a look inside, and we'll see that it's got a beautiful M Sport black leather interior, which is probably the best package that you could get for the E60. I'm a big fan of black leather, and then of course being M Sport seats, you've got great cushioning and support compared to the base model seats and that sporty look. And again, this being an LCI car, the trim just looks great on the car compared to the non-LCI panels, which I'm familiar with. I actually used to have an E60 545i, so kind of like the non-LCI version of this car, and that car taught me a lot about the E60 platform, which is why I felt like this would be a really cool build for the channel. Again, here's the rear of the car. We even have the factory 550i sport rims. So these look really nice, although I think we might put them on a different car or maybe end up selling them, since the upgraded wheels actually don't look too bad on this car, especially being a silver car with the dark wheels. I do think that they do need upgraded emblems though. So as you can see, the car is in really good condition. I think it has, let's see, 158,000 miles. And that is not a super high number in my opinion, but it would indicate that this car probably needs some major services done, and that's why I was able to get it for such a good deal. Anyways, let's go ahead and try to give it a start right now. It is a comfort access car, so I don't need to have the key in order to start it, and it even has a cool red button here. But I'll go ahead and put my foot down. It seems to sink really far down to the floor, so probably we need a brake flush. And after a couple of seconds of cranking, it started up there. We have some airbag faults. And if I skip through that, we have a drive malfunction. So the car is in limp mode right now. And it looks like that's it. So 2 lights on, the engine light and the airbag light. The engine light probably has something to do with how the car was long cranking, but we're gonna check for codes in a second. For now, let's kill the engine and actually pop the hood and see what's under there. All right, so with that set up, we can take a look underneath the hood here. We'll see this is the massive, I believe it's a 4.5 liter. I don't think it's a 5 liter. It's called the N62, and this is gonna be the TU, the technical update, the LCI motor. So it has a couple of improvements over the 545i motor, but at the same time, this motor will also suffer from a lot of the similar problems, such as the water pipe that goes through the center of the motor, as well as the valve seals. The valve seals are a common problem in that they start to dry up on higher mileage motors, and then when the car is sitting for a while, some of the motor oil will actually drip into the valves, and then when you give it gas, let's say from a red light or after idling for a while, it'll actually blow up some smoke out of the rear tailpipe, which is something that I'm really curious we're gonna have to test here in a second. Now, besides that smoke burning issue, these things are also known to leak from a ton of different places. You have an alternator bracket over here, a vacuum pump seal, which is always leaking, some of the timing covers, and I've actually serviced a lot of things on this motor, the valve cover gaskets, all the things on my 545 which were leaking, and I had that car for a long time, so I got pretty familiar with it, and this car right here is not going to be much of a challenge for us. For those of you wondering, the color is Platin Grau Metallic, actually something I've never seen before, and it's a really nice shade of gray, I have to admit. But again, we have to remember that this car has some immense damage to the roof here. Now, something like this could be fixed by layering it over with some 3M vinyl or any brand vinyl like a gloss black. That would give it a nice kind of panoramic roof look, but then the rear trunk here, it's got immense damage as well. So we could either wrap the whole car another color or paint the trunk and paint the roof here, but I'm not sure if I would have the right equipment or skill to get it done the first time properly. So maybe you guys can tell me what you think, what your opinion is to fix this sort of body paint damage. But back to the front of the motor here, we really can't see that much. It doesn't appear, at least, like anything is wrong or leaking. So let's go ahead and hop back in the car and scan the codes and see what we can figure out. All right, we're loaded up on the scanner here, my Foxwell unit. I'll put a link to this in the description below. Remember, we're gonna focus on the airbag light as well as the engine light, since those are the only 2 things illuminated. So those are the only modules that we wanna see. Let's go to the DME and read the codes, and we get a DME inlet Vanos adaptation stop. So the Vanos code, a crankshaft sensor code, and then an intelligent battery sensor code. Now the IBS is not going to cause a check engine light. That's a very minor problem, but the crankshaft sensor, that'll definitely cause a long crank, which we were experiencing. And a bad crankshaft sensor will also cause Vanos codes, because now the car is not going to be able to tell the position between the crankshaft and what the Vanos is doing in relation on the camshafts and such. So we might have 2 birds with 1 stone on this one, but I'm not sure yet. Let's go ahead and take a look at the airbag module. And airbags can turn pretty expensive to fix, so hopefully there's nothing too wrong in the airbag module. Crash safety, I believe, and read the codes. Oh boy. So belt tensioner for the passenger, passenger airbag, side airbag, head airbag, safety battery terminal. That's, I think, the IBS. Eventually. So a lot of airbag codes. I wonder if we can clear this out and see what comes back. Codes cleared. Now let's read the codes again. And Literally all the same codes, every single one of them came back. So either all these things are disconnected or they're all bad. Oh man, I'm really hoping that we don't have to replace a ton of airbags in this car, because they're everywhere. They're in that pillar, I think in that pillar right there. They're in the door as well. I think sometimes even in the seats. You've got the front airbag, which it said was bad, and a ton of sensors. So, this might pose a problem, but hopefully if we do have to buy some airbags, maybe we can get them at the junkyard for a good price. So we'll put that a little bit further back on the list. For now, I want to focus on the motor and see what we can do to inspect it, because I have a feeling that there's more things wrong than just the crankshaft position sensor. And actually, if I'm being honest, when I met the seller of the car, he told me that he stopped driving it for a couple of reasons. Not because he didn't want to drive it, but actually when he took it to his local mechanic, they told him it was going to cost a few $1,000s in repairs for the motor because he was having an issue with the car burning coolant. Now, burning coolant can be a lot of different things. Particularly, it could be a head gasket leak. It could be just a hose leak or a bad radiator, for example. On this car, what I am worried about is the valley pan tube, which is right in the center of the motor, and it's very common for that to start leaking internally, and then the coolant actually falls into the motor somewhere where it can burn, but not escape. And so then you get a coolant leak while the car is driving, but not necessarily anything on your driveway, which can cause a little confusion for the average car owner and sound like a big problem, when really it's just the time and the parts that have to go into it. Now, I have had this car for a while, so I was able to scan the codes when I first bought it, and I was able to buy something that I think is going to help us today. Let's go take a look. Now, here it is, the magic part I think is going to solve all of our problems. This is just a crankshaft position sensor. Again, I had to replace this on my 545i before because it left me stranded when I couldn't start the car, and it's just this simple little sensor here that picks up the flywheel, and it tells the car when the motor's done one full rotation, and that way it's able to time itself in relation to the camshafts and set the vanos and such. And I'm hoping that this is going to remove the drivetrain malfunction so that the car will actually go into all the gears. So we should be able to just lift up the car with the jack and get access to this from underneath. Let's go ahead and see what we can do. So I'm sure you noticed this sensor was completely missing an O-ring, and that O-ring is part of the vital spacing between this sensor and the teeth on the flywheel, which tell the engine, again, where the crankshaft is. So now let's go ahead and try to start this car up and see if it starts any different. Here goes nothing. Let's see if she goes in a drivetrain malfunction mode. That's the true test. Passenger restraint system, we knew that. And no drivetrain malfunction, so I think that means we can go into gear now. So let's go ahead and actually try to clear the code, since it looks like there's still an engine light on there. Code's cleared. And we're also going to clear the codes for the transmission as well, because those typically tend to come up when the car goes into a drivetrain malfunction. Well, we got the check engine light away, and it definitely starts a little bit faster this time. So let's go ahead and get the hood prop off and see if we can take this car for a drive. Now, I have actually driven this car before, if I'm, again, being honest, and that was when I actually bought it, and I was able to drive it home surprisingly. So the crankshaft position sensor was allowing me to start the car, but it was going into a drivetrain malfunction mode, and I was able to limp it home. I think it gets stuck in like 3rd or 4th gear, so you really can't get into acceleration much, and the car limits, you know, top speed, I believe even, but I was able to limp it home like this. And now we're gonna see what it drives like with all 6 gears I think it has in this transmission, and see how well it shifts. I hope you guys can hear that. It doesn't sound too bad, honestly. The exhaust setup is pretty much a resonator delete, but then it's kind of twinned off to create that quad exhaust look, which is not bad on this car, especially considering this is a 550i, so it does have a pretty big motor. I'll go ahead and put the windows up. Hopefully the wind noise wasn't too bad. And even with my seatbelt on, the seatbelt light comes on. So that means that there's definitely an issue with the seatbelt tensioner, or maybe the buckle, I think on the passenger seat. A lot of passenger side problems, so I wonder what that could be from. Otherwise, really nice and quiet in here. A great driving experience that you get from the E60s. Really plush, really comfortable, plenty of room, really nice interiors on these cars in my opinion. And of course, one of the cool things about this car is that it has the paddle shifters, so you've got full control with the iDrive system to give it the power when you need to. I think I said iDrive system when I was talking about the transmission there, but you guys get what I mean. Let's go ahead and get this car back to the shop and give it one final look over, and I'll let you guys hear what it sounds like. Holy cow, this car sounds so good. I almost feel bad for my neighbors. Keyword, almost. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this first look at our new arrival of the latest project here at the Bimmer barn. I can't wait to get down and dirty with this thing. A high mileage N62 motor is definitely holding a lot of surprises. Some things off the top of my head, I definitely want to look into that water pipe. I think it's probably burning coolant from there, but I think we're gonna have to drive the car a little bit more to confirm. I also want to look at the transmission. I think that thing probably needs to be serviced. It didn't seem the smoothest going into reverse and drive gears, so we might have to put some attention there. But then again, guys, the biggest problem with this car is going to be the fact that it sat for so long, so there's going to be a lot of issues to look into, like the paint and the trunk here, and I'm sure other things are going to pop up as well. So anyways, let me know if you're excited for this build. It's going to be the first E60 on the Bimmer Barn channel, and I know a lot of you guys are into the older BMWs, but these newer ones are not that bad. They're really good daily drivers if you can tackle some of the common problems that they have, and hopefully you can get one for a good deal like we got today. So anyways, be sure to leave a like or a comment down below what you think we should do with this build while we have it. It's gonna be more of a restore and flip series, so I want to get everything dialed in on it, get it looking good as well, and then sell it and try to make some good profit. That way we can turn that over into our other projects and other things that we're working on here at the Bimmer Barn. So subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and as always, I hope everyone has an awesome day. We'll see you next time.